Okay, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Headlines, where me and my co-host Steve, we take a look at what happened this week from a news point of view, what's going on in the news, and then we actually dive into the charts because again, the headlines will only tell you so much. You actually find out what's going on looking into the chart. So, uh, bloody day so far today, Steve. What how's your trading been going? Everything. I'm just looking at my screen here and everything's red.
Everything's red. I just got out of the live session with Barry, and I just kept commenting on how my high-low tickers were just nothing but red. We're getting the midday bounce that we probably deserve at the moment. And as a teaser, I'm going to talk about one, the Tesla short, and why I covered quickly last week. But I've jumped back in short, and I've got a few positions, and I figure it could be educational to look at the reason why I'm in them and what I'm thinking and where my out is and all that.
Cool. I love that. And while we're talking about the market, we can just hop right into the first story, which is just talking about how we're on pace for the worst week since the Silicon Valley collapse. Some people won't even probably haven't been trading that long, but that was a big crypto bank that was doing some a little bit of Rob Peter to pay Paul stuff, and that kind of started there's this whole bank run on these small regional banks. It ended up being a blip in the radar, but caused quite a big move. And if we take a look, we start here with the SP 500. We're seeing kind of the same thing now. Saying it's the worst week just shows that right. We basically opened at the high of the week, and it looks like we are potentially closing at the low of the week. So that's what makes it a really bad week. But it's looking bad, and I'm not insanely worried end of the world or anything like that. But we're what's this rising 200-day moving average we have below us. Maybe we go
Hmm.
test that. That's also the low of this prior range from the carry trade. We could test that, and
Yeah.
we've talked about this a few times. There's this election thing coming up, and we get all choppy before that.
I'm going to say, yeah, keep an eye on that 200-day moving average. I'm going to say it's in play, and I'm going to tell you why. Go to the 15-minute. Um, as the market was precipitously lower, the Fed came out, and you can zoom in and highlight that
Oh
spike.
yes, right.
The
This thing.
spike. See that little
Yeah.
spike? It was so short-lived. There's no color in that candle. And the fact with that spike was basically the Fed doing what they've always done. And they basically came out and said, okay, well, we're going to cut rates. Well, the market already knew that. And what's that meme where they're like, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they go back to what they're doing, go back to selling.
Yeah.
And that's what I see. All the sellers went, great. That doesn't work right now. We
And
knew
it
that. And thanks for the opportunity to sell into, we're going lower. That's a big tell if you're looking for, the tea leaves. In my opinion, that was the most significant thing that happened probably this week, coming off of the numbers this morning. They're out of the way. And then you got the Fed saying, okay, we're going to cut rates. The market's like, yeah, we don't care.
yeah, if we do this on a 5, yeah, it was not even a full 5-minute candle, and then we were right back to it. And a couple awesome things that we should note from that right we um that we talk about all the time is one, it's not the news that matters, it's the reaction to the news, right? If that had comment had turned the day positive and pushed higher, then hey, we're going further. The fact that they shrug off that news, that's one thing. And then also, yeah, the market's really efficient. It has priced in a lot of things, right? And I always look at the people who go, "Oh, we're entering a recession, sell stocks." If you go back in history, the moment you enter a recession, it's usually the time to buy. And just the same as when the Fed starts to cut rates. As soon as they cut rates, everyone's like, "Oh, it's going to be so bullish when they cut rates." Generally speaking, when the Fed cuts rates, that's usually near the top of markets, or there's some more downside to go. So, quite often, again, it's a lot of this is priced in already.
There's no more better example of a sell the news event than what we saw in midday today, what I was highlighting. Oh,
Yeah.
that's it. Sell the news. That's pretty much the news.
Well, and another one we were talking a little bit. Right? I don't think it can be a financial podcast without talking about Nvidia once, but right, these Nvidia earnings came in. And if you want to talk about the thing that would hurt the most amount of people is when they were pricing in Nvidia's earnings, they were saying a 15% swing one way or the other is what the options price or traders were pricing in. And so it was only like 3% down. So that killed everyone who was long options, everyone who was short options. They all got wiped out, and the people who were selling options made a bunch of money. But the report, if you actually looked at the report, was generally positive. It was they're making money, they're making more money than people thought. Everything's fantastic, and then it goes to sell anyway. But it had already started that. It started this lower high sequence before that occurred, just showing you that this is why we go beyond the headlines to plug the name of the show is because it's the market's going to do what the market's going to do. Generally, the headlines will either come out after or they'll just kind of confirm what you're already seeing. But the fact that the earnings report was okay and then this gaps down, and even though it wasn't a crash, it sold and closed at its lows, then it makes sense that as this thing push lowers, and this is a lot of what's causing, because I think Nvidia is like 6% of the market right now. So this is, causing a lot of the selling that we're seeing.
Hmm. Yeah. Getting a
So
bit of a midday bounce, but it's midday. You have to see how we close.
well, that's what, right, Charles Dow was always saying, right? The close is the most important print. So we'll see what happens here. Again, it would be insane. It would be insane to think that we're going to close green or anything today. But the question is, if we bounce, how much up of this candle do we negate? Now anything can happen, right? We could be at all-time
Mm.
highs at the end of the day for all we know. But that's just what, right, the market moving coverage. Now next we can go, right, this guy's back. Roaring Kitty tweets this. I did the same quote again that I know I'm going to get some hate for, but just saying that, hey, hedge funds are going to make a bunch of money, because every time this guy tweets, you get retail that loses money, you get hedge funds that make money. So he's the best stooge there is for the hedge fund market. So in this picture, he seems to be dropping what is the Chewy dog, or related to Chewy in some way. And people are saying, oh, well, maybe he's going to pile into GME. But if you look at both these charts, he's definitely kind of lost his power, right? This was the last pump and dump that he did when he did that long week, and everyone was saying, oh, this is going to change the world and blah, blah, blah. And then we crashed back down, and then he did a whole bunch of other tweets and a little bit less of a bounce, and so on and so forth. So he definitely seems to be losing his power here. This Chewy thing, it looked like it was going to be ugly earlier in the day, but it's actually outperforming the market right now, even though he's saying he's done with Chewy. So again, like anything else, what I do, how I know when he tweets out, is because he doesn't tweet too often, as I just have the little alert set that you can do on Twitter. So it sends me a notification when he's tweet. If I look at something like GameStop and it hasn't moved already, I take my little trade. I have fun with the apes and make some money. But just like we said last time, it's going to be a flash in the pan. We're getting more and more reports that they're not able to turn around. They're not even able to make a dime. We have earnings coming out next week. Maybe that's why he's hyping some things up now. Maybe he's looking to unload some things before earnings. But until we see something from the $3 billion or so of cash they wrote, again, it's a meme stock, so trade it as such. That's my opinion on it anyway. What do you think, Steve?
Tired old story, but I will say that the stock has come alive in the last. Actually, come over to my desktop. I'll show you.
Yeah.
The stock has come alive. It wasn't lost on me that. Let me get my pen out. It wasn't lost on me that last week we kind of had a nice, interesting pop off of lows. Now, you know, all this stuff. Here's the 50-day moving average, and it was kind of interesting here, but then there's my signal candle. It died. Ever since
Hmm.
that candle, it's been under pressure. Ugly day here, but all of a sudden we had a big volume, some volume spikes you can see down here, and then 2.5 day run got stymied by the 50-day, thrown back down, kind of a classic 1, 2, 3 pullback, and then we get this move today. And as we speak, the intraday has tons of volume pulling back. The 10 SMA is forcing the issue higher. So as we're speaking, there's technical interest in this stock. I'm not interested. I don't know. I can tell you it's kind of coming back to life. So again, all we care about is, what does the actual footprints in the sand tell us versus what the headlines are. If this, and it looks like it could close above the 50, well, that's the first time it's done that for a while. And since August or July actually. Keep an eye on it. But the problem is you've got earnings, but you also got $1 billion in cash. So I mean, who knows what they're going to say? It's a guess at this point. I will finish by saying I still believe there are trapped shorts in this name, and I will take that and die on that hill until it's resolved. So
Well,
you just don't see them.
if it's resolved the same way AMC or Bed Bath and Beyond are resolved, then those shorts are gonna do well. Again, I think it's just it's he picked a Friday on purpose, right? To start tweeting about stuff again, right? It's definitely he's manipulating it. I would just learn from history and say if you can be into it first, giant pyramid scheme, right? These meme stocks have always been pyramid schemes, right? If you're in first, great. Just make sure you have a plan to get out and you have a plan to move on with your day, because at some point these things will reverse entirely. So quickly, while I see you setting up Tesla here,
Hmm.
I actually have
Yeah.
something that will go into. So car prices are dropping. And we're going to talk about a few car companies, but I know Steve's going to go over his Tesla trade and what he's doing there. That can't be good for Tesla, right? If car prices as a whole are dropping, and it's the same, we there was this used car market that just absolutely went on fire during the pandemic. We had the chips weren't shipping and all that supply chain stuff that you remember for the pandemic. You remember. Now we're starting to see car prices and used car prices dropping for the first time in about 4 or 5 years. So we'll go back to your Tesla chart, because that's
Okay.
not a headline I want to see. If I'm selling cars, I don't obviously want their prices to drop.
No, but I want to enter a topic here that I didn't even talk to you about. And it's a really interesting topic. So I want to follow up because last week I know I was talking hard about selling my Tesla. Let me just kind of zoom into it because where we were last week, if I can get to it, it's kind of hard. But the point being, as I said, I liked how it was just trading underneath here, and basically I got out right about here because it faked out above the 10 SMA, and then it looked like it was just going to push through. And I literally saw a video this day, and this video made me stop looking at Tesla as a car manufacturer. Michael, it started, and you might even dig up this article while I'm talking on the giant Giga AI
Hmm.
data processing facility they've built. Apparently, they've been working 24/7, and they have built this giant data center. And this data center is full on AI repository from, guess what? When you buy these Teslas, you kind of sign away a little bit of privacy and giving feedback and data so they can make the process and the software better. Well, the car is watching where you're driving, and it needs that information, of course, as well. So it's downloading this new information into this giant Texas Giga AI center.
Hmm.
And what it's going to do is going to learn about humans as they cross the street, walk. It's watching human behavior. And guess what they're going to do with this information? This is where I totally lost it on Tesla. It's not a car manufacturer. It is a AI and robot company. They're building these robots, and this is what they're going to program them with. They're
Yes.
learning how. In 5 years from now, I don't think we're going to recognize the world we live in. You're going to have a robot ironing the doing the laundry, asking you what you want for dinner.
Oh, I hope so.
And so technically, I stopped shorting Tesla. It's down big today. But in the back of my mind, I'm not looking at Tesla as this electric EV company that I can shit on and laugh about. Again, I live in San Diego. My wife and I they literally are all over the place. And we laugh about how often we see a white Tesla. It's the
Hmm.
most ubiquitous NC car I've ever seen in my life. And I'm just not a fan. So I caught myself a little bit of a spike short, and yeah, I want this company to go down. You got to catch yourself in those moments, whether it's
Yeah.
GameStop or me with Tesla. You just got to let the price tell you. So the price broke out as I was just like, whoa, I'm not in this thing. This is an AI robot company. It's not just a car company anymore. So I wanted to just kind of drop that nugget on how I'm looking at Tesla going forward.
Well, yeah, and that's he's and kind of what you're saying is he's getting the most important thing when it comes to training AI models, which we know obviously we're building AIs for trade ideas. We've been playing with this tech. We know it's important, but it's all as we've been building kind of an AI to help support our users that you'll just be able to chat with. The problems we had and all the meetings we have is just getting the data, getting the right data, getting the data clean, getting all of that. So really, when it comes down to it, and I actually listened to a podcast, and the guy was making that same argument that you were on Tesla. He was saying, listen, they at some point, we don't know when, at some point, cars will drive themselves. That's just a certainty. At some point in the future, it could be 5 years, could be 10 years, could be 20 years. And then also, which what you're talking about, I brought up here, right? They're looking to build their own robot. All of these things, the person that's going to win this race when it comes to trucking, driving themselves, and all of this, whether they're EVs or whether they're
Data.
gas cards, who cares? Yeah, it's who has the data, right? If I'm taking a fleet of, even if they're gas powered trucks, and I want to have them at least some period, I've heard, people talk about, okay, maybe they won't drive themselves fully for 20 years, but maybe it'll be like a plane where a driver parks it and a driver, right, moves it through the city, but then on the highway he can just take a nap, like autopilot or whatever.
But it's creepy because you realize it's not just learning how to drive. It's watching people, their nonverbals. It's listening to you.
Yeah.
It's learning people from the front end of a car out there times 50 million.
Yeah, you
It's
can see
crazy.
this little GIF is showing you what it sees, right? So it's looking at cars, and
Uh-huh.
I this
Neural network.
I'll see if I can find you this podcast. But this gentleman was making the premise of not only learning from it, but actually doing like roadside checks on. So imagine if a Tesla could grab all of the information. We were talking about Costco earlier and how Costco is always a madhouse and super busy where I live. If the Tesla is getting this camera data all the time. If they're driving by stores and they're saying, "Well, that store is really busy, and that store is not as busy as it was this time," right? Suddenly, no one's parking outside of a Lululemon anymore, and everyone's parking outside of a Nike store,
Yeah.
right? That's data that advertisers want to
It's
have,
hedge
right?
fund material. They pay for that.
Yeah. So, yes, more data the better, and these things just have cameras on them, absolutely
But
everywhere.
it literally flipped a switch in my mind. It's like, oh, that's where we are.
Yeah.
These cars are watching us and learning all about us so that these robots you just highlighted can get a brain that knows already how to interact with us.
Uh,
Crazy.
well, I hope you're right. I hate doing my laundry. I would love to be able just to tell a robot to do it for me. So I am open to the Jetson world where what was the Rosie? Was that the maid? They had a little,
Rosie the robot. Yeah.
yeah. I give me
I've
one.
already got the floor cleaner. He already maps out the house.
Yeah, it's just yeah, make it better. I'm all for it. So on top of that, you want to talk just a little bit about, I guess while we're on the
Yeah,
car thing, I'm looking at Carvana and I'm looking at Hertz as well, but they've been bad. Car prices are going down. They're going to be worse. So I don't think there's really too much
boy.
to add.
Can I tell you a quick story about Hertz? It takes 45 seconds. I rented a
Yeah.
car just over 2 months ago. My brother and I, we in Sacramento and came back, and apparently there may have been a chip in the window. I didn't see it. I didn't hear it. I didn't know it. I didn't take the insurance. I turned the car in. Never heard a thing. All of a sudden, 60 days later, I start getting this claim number for $750. I'm like, "No, I didn't do this." They're like, "Well, yeah, you did." I go, "Well, what is it?" They go, "Well, there's a chip in the window. We've emailed you." I go, "No, you didn't. What email do you have for me?" Shit you not, Michael. Somebody made up an email, srggomez@gmail.com. I go, "That's who you've been corresponding with on this? That's not me. Why didn't you use the email that I rented the car under?" They're like, "Oh," and I haven't heard back from them. So I don't know what the hell's going on over there.
I hate that because yeah, they give you the little sheet and you're supposed to like look at every square inch of this
Mm-hmm.
this rental car and you're like,
Seven hundred fifty
"Oh,
dollar windshield chip. Oh, okay, sure. Is that what you guys are trying to do to make revenues now? You making up emails, trying to scam people? Never mind.
well, listen, if this is in the future, this is something else I'm pumped for. I guess I could ask you, these robo taxis, this is something they've been talking about. It's not on this page. This robo taxi stuff forever. That's what caused that little bit of a spike that happened on Tesla here. I guess Elon came out and talked about
Mm-hmm.
right here about these robo taxis. That could be interesting. Not have to rent a car anymore. click a button, car shows up. But again, I still think
I
we're
saw
a long
videos
way
in
off
China. I
that.
was like, would you put your kid in one of these? The woman's like putting her kid in a robotaxi and waving goodbye to her. The kid was like 10 years old.
I don't know.
Like,
I've seen some stupid drivers out there. It's one of those, if it gets good enough, God, you get them off the road. But yeah, it's got to get there first. And you're
all
right.
right, well,
Tesla's
let's
been going
finish
for
up
days.
on. I'm going into the weekend pretty heavily short, based on the things I was talking about, the observation of the midday market sell off that meant nothing,
Hmm.
um, and I'm going to do it in three. And I'm doing it on my 401k, so I'm literally, there's three ways you can be. You can be long, you can be in cash, or you can be short. Well, in 401k type American retirement accounts, I don't know about in SEP and IRAs, maybe you can, but in this one, I haven't been able to go short. But all of a sudden, in the last couple of months, Drexion has come out with some single inverted ETFs. So for Apple, we've got AAPD. For Google, we've got um, GGLS, and these
Hmm.
are all inverted. And then for Microsoft, we've got MSFT. I'm sorry, MSFD. There's the inverted. So those are the three like technological, three of the horsemen, Microsoft, Google, Apple. I am now short by way of those three ETFs. I want them to go up. I bought them in my retirement account. So if we get a big, sell off next week, I'm going to feel kind of special because not only was I not in cash, but I'm actually kind of making hopefully money on that if it happens. But just real quickly, what I'm seeing, all three of these are what I call they're in the armpit. All right, we're below the 50 here. The 50 is a big deal for Apple. This one's holding up the most, and I'm most heavy. I've literally got a 20% position of my account sitting in that AAPD, hoping that Apple rolls over. Google has been a very weak candidate today, and it's very apparent when we look at the daily chart. Look at that 200. It rolled
Oof.
back over,
Yeah.
made a new low, found support, 2 days of rejection at the 200 day, and it's just gone. It's almost like let go of the ledge. All right. I've been short this thing all day. Again, I waited for the employment numbers to come out. The midday thing with the Fed was a surprise. But once I saw how quickly that was rejected by the market and the sellers, I just sat back and I actually added a few things. And then lastly, on Microsoft on the daily chart, same kind of a story. The moving averages are rolling over. It's in the armpit. There's nothing really supporting it. It broke the 200 as well. I'm going to take these three positions heavily into the weekend, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I want to, can you go back to that Google chart and zoom in
hmm
a little bit there?
Google regular.
Yeah, and just zoom into
Okay.
that.
Those rejection days.
Yes, I just think there's a really good candlestick lesson for people, right? People talk about all the time. I was actually when I did the live Q&A a couple days ago, people were asking, "Oh, what candlestick pattern is the best candlestick pattern?" And I was trying to explain that it doesn't matter, but this I think is a perfect lesson where you have to put everything in context, right? So what me and Steve probably see very easily, and just to spell it out slowly for newer traders, is they brought it down to the 200-day moving average, and you can see those two candlesticks where they bounce up, and that's what those wicks tell us, right? At some point there was some battle to say, I'm going to buy Google at the 200-day moving average because it's an upward sloping 200-day moving average. It's a perfectly good strategy to have. But each of those days, that pop was used for people to either short into or to get out of long positions or whatever. And when that happens twice in a row like that, that to me is a very powerful candlestick pattern. Not to saying that, right, I think it's called like hanging man or something, in and of itself is a powerful candlestick.
I call them rejection wicks because that's really what they are.
Right. So it just tells you that in that area, using the 200-day moving average, for example, every time buyers tried to lift it off that price, the candlesticks are just reading perfectly clear and in an undisputable way that somebody or group of people, it's I guess always a group of people, are using that opportunity to say, great, now I get this period to short, I get this period to sell, and then when it finally lets go, all of those shorts are doing fantastic and they're just riding this wave down until whenever they go to take profit. So I just thought that was a really succinct candlestick lesson out there for people.
Well, which is what happened today when the Fed spoke and how quickly it was rejected.
Yeah.
Same
And
kind of a concept.
and
So
then
that's the prevailing current we have right now.
and then two candles later, you see another big wick there, right? So they tried to bounce it again. So it came down to lows. the Fed said whatever, it bounced, and then when it came back down to lows, they tried to bounce it again, but it just couldn't happen. So, yeah, if you're looking to get into candlestick analysis, again, just remember all you're doing is you're seeing what happened on a shorter time frame. So when I look at a daily candlestick, I'm seeing what happened intraday.
Before I go, I just got to give another prop to the 130 line, the 5-day SMA on a 15-minute chart. It acts as incredible pivot points. Look at that support, resistance, solid. This is where I got short Apple. This is where you want to take. I'm so happy with my entry because I waited for the employment number to come out. Apple opened up, and I said, if it hits this thing, I'm going to short it. I think I can give myself a pretty good entry. And I had basically zero pain. When the Apple was reversed with the Fed midday, I added to it. Again, I'm extremely heavy in Apple right now, so I'm happy, knock on wood, to see it on lows. So
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't go. Let me just go here real quick because we are launching this new thing. We're still working on it, but we should always tell you when we launch new things. And this is what we're calling trade wave. The idea here is that, me and Steve talk about moving averages and trend following a lot. And the idea is that trend following in and of itself can be a great way just to make sure that you're doing okay because you can stay on the right side of the trend for as long as that trend persists, right? That's the basic idea behind it, is that you're just trying to, when you're right, you want to be really, really right. And when you're wrong, you want to be
just like
really
that
wrong.
Apple trade. Yep.
Exactly. So what I did while Steve was talking is I just turned my trade wave here, which you can just get from clicking on the little indicator button. If you're on the downloaded app, you can click the little FX button. Let's get rid of that so there's no confusion. What I did is I just said, hey, give me an SMA, give me a 10 period SMA and a 130 period, right? So I just put in those settings and hit OK. And what will happen is, I can do that with EMA real quick. Well, what will happen,
Yeah.
just to make it quick, is it basically creates this cloud, and the cloud is the lower part of the cloud when it's moving lower is the 10 period SMA, and then the higher one when it's red like this is the 130. And then vice versa, if the 10 period is above the 130, it turns green. So if I now go to kind of any chart out there, we can go to the SPY, and again, this is still a work in progress, just FYI. It will actually tell you what the trades were. Did I just break it? I may have broke it. 1 second, guys.
And you like that? You like that pre-market and post-market on, huh?
Uh, that's a setting that will come to the web soon, but yeah, it's
Okay.
currently
By default.
the way
Okay.
it's working in the web. But again, you can pick any time frame, and what it will do is, again, it highlights this chart. So what Steve was talking about with those two moving averages, you can say simply, hey, if it's yellow, I'm gonna just let it mellow. If it turns
Brown and flush it down.
to brown, flush it down. Now, on top of that, again, I always show new features, and then things always get fun. It's going to tell you buy and sell signals. So let's go from GME. Let's just do NVIDIA. I just use this as the example, where what we're doing is we're trying to get users on the right side of the trend, and we're trying to have them stay on the right side of the trend. So here on NVIDIA, with these settings that I have in here now, simply saying, hey, buy right here, just saying that this cloud is now green. You are above the moving averages. The moving averages are pointing higher. You should probably look to be long. And then right here, time to get out because you are
Brown,
below the
flush it
moving
down.
average. It's brown, flush
You
it
actually got
down.
the color.
And then you can see, it's not always going to work, right? You buy here and you sell here, it's not going to work. But you can see how well this system works on your time frame and on your stock. So if you're someone
Yeah.
who's like, I like to trade, I don't know, the example that I was going to give is like Intel, right? Because get a lot of people out there saying, hey, I want to buy Intel. I think this is going to be a turnaround story. It's great. This is a good idea to use for something like that. If you have a fundamental thesis on why you think Intel is going to be good, great. Now just look at it every day, and when the buy signal happens, take a shot. And then if it tells you to get out, it's time to get out. Just and then how to use this. This is a trend following system, which means if there's a trend, this is going to do fantastic. It's going to keep you on the right side of that trend. It's going to get you out when the trend reverses. That's fantastic. As you can see here on Intel, when there is no trend, this is not the system you really want to be shooting for the fences on, right? So make sure whatever you're looking at is trending. We're going to be doing this more and more where you can see straight up that if I take a look at the short side of this, it's doing fantastic to short Nvidia with this system. But if I go or Intel, if I go with the long system, I would have lost money. Now, I would have lost 16% and Intel is down way more than 16%. So you're still beating by doing this, but just having this little report here to say, yes, the system's doing well on this stock on this time
Hmm.
frame is great. I definitely think you should check it out. And we can take a look at, right? It's agreeing with Steve on a lot of these, right? So on Apple, we have a sell just a couple days ago, right? So for example, if Steve's like, hey, I want to take the decision making process of when to cover out, just wait for a buy ticket, right?
Let's look at the other two, Google and
Uh,
Microsoft.
Google. So yeah, that was a
Continued.
sell, yeah, right up here.
Oof. Yeah.
So at the very least, I would, if I was a trader, I would use this to do something like I will not buy right when the last ticket was a sell. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, there was a buy signal right here. Maybe you don't get involved right when it happens. Maybe you use, pullbacks and price analysis and all of that for it. But just sticking with the direction of the trend would have gotten you out Google right here. And then you're short again. And the other one was Microsoft, right?
Microsoft, yeah. Ooh.
And then, yeah, Microsoft would have been right here as well. And these are with the default settings, which I put on because I kind of broke everything. But you can change all of these settings. So if you wanted to, make it a little bit smoother and less signals, you're a longer term person, well, you just put longer term moving averages on it, right? So let's go from,
I would do 10 and 20. Can you see what 10 and 20 looks like for
yeah,
me?
so do 10 and a 20. And I'm going to just, hey, you can
I want to, because
change.
I think those signals might be closer to where my average, or where my entry is.
You can
Uh,
do that as well. So yeah, what I think is the best use of this. So yeah, it would have you would have still been short from right here. So it wouldn't have
okay.
printed another sell
Interesting.
because it
Right.
still would have had
Right.
you in it. Um, again, I think the best use we get all the time, and Steve will definitely back me up on this. I didn't even run it by. We get all the time of what does your system think of this stock, right? The stock du jour, the meme stocks, and then it was Nvidia for the longest time. Fast forward a couple years, it'll be something else, right? It's always something else. What does your
Tesla.
system think of this, right? And this is a great way of doing that. Where again, if I like Microsoft, say again, I want to buy Microsoft. I
Just
think
wait. Hmm.
I think something's going to happen. Great. I go to it every day. I check on it, and the day that it's near the close and there's a little buy symbol, I take a buy, and then I start checking on it, and then you can again change the chart time frame. So if you're a day trader, it'd be the same thing. If I was trading, what was there was this crazy one, WHLR. Yeah,
Yeah. Whirler, 500,000 float.
yeah. So this is one of these just insane guys. It's probably going to go to zero and never come back again, but it's the same thing. If I'm looking to short this thing, I'm not going to short it when the cloud is blue and it's making new highs. I'm going to wait, try a short here. It would have been about a flat, and now you're short again right here. So you can, again, just use whatever it is you do to pick stocks and then point this at it. And I think you'll definitely be helped out. So
That's what
that's
people want.
that's what trade wave is, right? Trying to keep you on the direct side of the trend. If you're not, already using trade ideas, come on over to trade ideas and check it out. But yeah, I just thought I would tease people with that while we're still working on it at the end, so only the hardcore people know, right? All right, Steve, it's a good episode. I'll see you next week unless you have anything else to leave the kids with.
Well,
All right,
that's it. I'm spent.
see you guys next week.